was mentioned by Mr. Wood that a point of interest of Palazzo Lombardia is the fact of being public. Built by Impregilo, #1 in Italy, I have the impression built well. And the point is this: was it part of the design brief that you would have such an important square? It was mentioned in one of your writings that you took inspiration from the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele by Mengoni. Here you rather showed the Pirelli skyscraper by Ponti, which has no interior space. So the question is, was it a point for your winning the competition that you would solve the problem of this of the square, of the public space against other competitors, or everybody? It was part of the design brief and everybody had this solution. It's CRM is the firm with the contact, global service, the contact for the square. Thank you.
My recollection of course I don't know anything about the jury deliberations, but I did see the 10 projects and they all had significant public space. The reason is, and I think as an architect, it's important to acknowledge this. The reason was not because we invented that notion of having public spaces, because the manifesto that was issued to the competitors was very explicit about that. As I mentioned to Mr. Pacca when we were talking earlier, that manifesto is really the reason that we decided to enter this competition. I think if I read you just one phrase from it, you'll understand how important that was. This is a one-page document given to all the competitors setting forth the aspirations for this center, and one of them was not an isolated building or complex, but a new element of attraction, the pole of a renewed piece of the city, a square representing Lombardy's cities and towns, an architectural system to be walked through by the citizens on both weekdays and at weekends, an urban system where administrative functions and cultural representative and entertainment functions may tidily overlap in all safety. So that was given to all the competitors, and I believe they all responded to it in one way or another. It was, in fact, the competition entries were exhibited at the time, and it was quite an exciting exhibition. As I mentioned in my remarks, I think the notion of social sustainability is as important in thinking about tall buildings as ecological sustainability. And social sustainability really means that we have to think more about how a building meets the ground than how it meets the sky. This project gave us an opportunity to think about that problem in a new way, because of the fact that it was so, the brief was so explicit about making a major public square as part of this new public building.
I have a question for the team of Doha Tower. With the innovation and creativity put into the design, were there any culturally specific requirements or restrictions to consider before designing to be able to reflect the culture?
The culture was expressed through the facade. So as you've seen, okay, the pattern within the facade is taken from the local culture. It's been Qatari culture. So this is one of the components. And also, we designed the tower also to offer the maximum transparency to the outside, which is not usual in this country.
Al-Qadmani University of Illinois, Chicago. I really thank you so much for spectacular, wonderful projects, very innovative, very inspirational. However, overall, it seems that we are going into a direction where we are increasingly embracing complex design process, complex manufacturing process, and complex construction process, which all add up to very high embodied energy and high upfront cost. And then it seems that we keep designing buildings as if they will stay forever, with little considerations to the time when the future generation is going to dismantle them. So making the complex process now super complex, and then you can think ahead that it's going probably also super complex to dismantle them. So from sustainability point of view, it seems like we are doing something here not quite really 100% healthy. So any thoughts about these issues? And thank you in advance for answering the questions.
I think that's a very good question. Who's brave enough to start tackling it? Complex designs, higher embodied energy, facades, connections, sculptural shapes. Charlie, you're smiling. Do you want to have a go? Sorry, Richard, you're smiling.
Well, I'll go out on the limb because he's encouraging me. No, I think there's also a social issue there, as Henry Cobb was saying, because when you look at what goes into these buildings, I tend to think that there's more going into them from an expense point of view than going towards esteem value, as opposed to just what's really needed for a good return on investment. And I think they excite me. I think they're just wonderful. Okay, we've been involved with like buildings like that also, but I think we do have to just step back and say what is the motivation for the building, from a integration of the engineering and architecture with the social sciences of that particular area. So I wouldn't offer an answer to your question, but I would offer an encouragement for the council to spend time studying these issues, the benefits and the disadvantages.
Yeah, I would strongly second that. I think when you talk about complexity, if complexity is merely arbitrary, it doesn't perhaps do very much. But one of the things that's, I think we saw some interesting complexity today in quite a few of the projects. I didn't, for example, I was particularly struck by the discussion of the One Blythe Street and the really extraordinary scale and interest of the public space at street level. To me, now it's not, that thoughtfulness, that concern about how a building meets the ground and about how the public engages with it is what we need. We need more tall buildings that think about their relationship to public life and public space, that speak to the public. And you can speak to the public through forms, as for example, the tower we saw early this afternoon, the Absolute World Towers, they speak, the gesture of those towers is exciting as a form. And that complexity might be thought of as superfluous, but I don't think so. I think that it's part of, and I think the presenters talked about it that way, it's part of making a tall building engage its public, making it interesting, making a building speak to the public. And there are two principal ways in which a tall building does that. One is through its form on the skyline, and the other is in the way it meets the street. And in both cases, I think complexity is probably a good thing.
Okay, Peter, briefly, do you want to just address that?
Very briefly. Just to say that a lot of the complexity that goes into these buildings these days is actually to reduce the energy consumption of the building itself. And given that between 80 and 90% of the energy consumption of a building is actually is by the fact that human beings are occupying it, then we should embrace the complexity that is to do with, particularly one that is to do with reducing the energy consumption of the buildings.
Okay, another question. Hassan.
Hi, I have a question to Richard and Charlie. First, congratulations to you on your accomplishment. My question is that you have done so many remarkable projects, and I'd like to know, if it's not too hard, can you name one or two the most favorable projects? And also, I'd like to, I want you to give us one advice to your professional colleagues and young engineers who see you as a role models.
I should just explain there's a vested interest there because Hassan works at Thornton Tomasetti.
In 1993, I founded the ACE Mentor program in New York City. 100,000 high school kids have been through the program in 400 communities across America. One of the first lectures I gave was a picture of a sailboat, a picture of the Petronas Towers, WL squared over 2, and that any high school kid could design the Petronas Towers. And I'm not kidding. It's not that complicated. It's a cantilever, WL squared over 2. Okay? And one of the problems with most engineering faculties is there's a need for faculty to be important, so they make everything complex. We need to get rid of calculus teachers because they're destroying future engineers. You don't need calculus. Digital computers have gotten rid of it. And I go over really big in faculties when I say, and there's no reason for tenure in an engineering school. Sorry. I'm not too popular in engineering schools. No, but I'm serious. I have a video, I have an animation done by Len Joseph, who is a brilliant structural engineer with Thornton Tomasetti. It shows a sailboat, and it shows the Petronas Towers. And it shows how the keel has a righting moment. When the wind blows on the sail, the righting moment is what keeps the sailboat from tipping over. And the righting moment is the weight of the building times its eccentricity to take care of this times that. Okay? I'm telling you, okay? If you talk to Len Joseph, all the original hand calculations on the Petronas Tower were done on long flights with my calculator and my yellow pad. And after $5 million worth of computer runs, I was within 10%. So let's not make this life more complicated than it has to be. Okay? A lot of these projects to me are overcomplicated. Maybe it's energy conservation. I'm not an energy specialist, okay? But I believe in the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Thank you.
Richard, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, there was a second part of your question, advice to young students, okay? And I would just say, tell them to listen to Charlie.
Okay, I think that's a good place to end it on, actually. I thought that was a very good question.